Hello everyone, today I'm in Lisbon, Portugal, which is the capital city of Portugal, and I'm here in the very picturesque Praça do Comércio Square, which is Portuguese for Trade Square. And Lisbon is also a coastal city, and this is the Tagus River that runs parallel to Lisbon. And though it is called a river, this is more like a bay almost, because the Tagus is big enough to accommodate rather large cruise ships like that one directly ahead in the center. And I'm not sure what cruise ship that is, but that is a rather large ship. And the city of Lisbon is actually an international destination for cruise ships from around the world. And something else that is interesting about the Tagus River is, if you think you saw the Golden Gate Bridge directly ahead, you would not be seeing things, because Lisbon has its very own replica copy of the Golden Gate Bridge. And the same architecture firm that built San Francisco's Golden Gate also built the bridge for Lisbon. And getting back to the Praça do Comércio Square, there's a lot of historic buildings in this square. And off to the right, this is the Lisboa Story Center, which is a museum, and it provides a 60-minute tour of Lisbon's history. And I believe this museum is housed inside of a former palace. And here in the center, this would be a statue of King Jose I, a king of Portugal during the late 1700s. And then the building directly ahead, that would be the Supremo Tribunal de Justiça, or Portugal's Supreme Court building. And off to the left, that is listed on my map as the Office of Planning and General Administration. So that's a government building, I suppose. And further ahead, that large archway in the center, that would be the Arco Augusta Arch, which was built following a very devastating earthquake in 1755. And that archway was destroyed in the earthquake, and it wasn't rebuilt until over a century later in 1873. And here is a rather interesting sight, a cruise ship that is leaving the port of Lisbon. And on the side of that ship, it says it is the Ambassador, though I do not believe that that is the same ship that I saw earlier docked at the port of Lisbon. That one looks to be a little bit smaller. Anyhow, getting back to the earthquake of 1755, it was a rather massive earthquake, even by modern day standards, and measured 7.7 on the Richter scale. And the earthquake destroyed over 85% of the city's structures and killed over 30,000 people. So it was a rather devastating earthquake, and at the time, approximately 250,000 people lived here in Lisbon, which is rather smaller than the current population. And what wouldn't be destroyed by the earthquake was later destroyed by the ensuing tsunami and then citywide fire. And that is a rather scary thought, to go through a giant earthquake like that, a 7.7 earthquake, and then, since you're right on the coast here, having to deal with a giant tidal wave. And apparently the tidal wave destroyed what was left of the city at the time. And thankfully, there hasn't been another major earthquake since the 1755 earthquake. So no major quakes in the last 250 years or so. And that's pretty good news, because I'm not really sure how well built some of these buildings are to withstand a large earthquake like that. Even a lot of modern day cities like Los Angeles or New York might not even be able to withstand them, not to mention a lot of these older brick buildings. And another interesting fact about the earthquake here during the 18th century was it was said the city of Lisbon constructed gallows to deter looters. So basically, if you were caught looting here in Lisbon, it was off with your head. And it's reported that approximately 30 people were executed by beheading following the major quake of 1755. So even 250 years ago, they had some of the same problems that societies have now. People taking advantage of natural disasters. And I'm now just walking under the Arco Augusta Arch, and this is a rather large arch. I would say it's at least 10-12 stories tall. And then this archway opens up into this boardwalk area where they have a lot of shops, restaurants, and hotels. And sometimes they have these street performers, and this one looks to be kind of interesting. Seems to have, or at least he had, a large crowd of people around him, and he appears to be levitating there, though he does have a post on the right side. What does everyone think? Is he defying gravity, or is he being held up by that post? Anyhow, the city of Lisbon actually predates that of the Roman Empire. At one time, what is now Lisbon was part of the Carthaginian Empire, and Carthage would go on to be conquered by Rome, and then Lisbon would be part of the Roman Empire for over 500 years. And here's another street vendor with the silly putty. And another. These must be pretty popular here. Then following the fall of the Roman Empire, Lisbon would be invaded by various nomadic tribes, and that period would be known as the Dark Ages. However, that might be a bit of a misnomer, as things probably weren't all that great here when the Roman Empire ruled this area, as about 40% of the population of Rome were slaves. Following the fall of Rome in the Dark Ages in the 1500s, Portugal would be ruled by the Spanish Empire, and Portugal actually has quite a bit in common with Spain, both language and their religion. And we are now in the restaurant business area of downtown, and this restaurant here is called Pastorelli Nini, and here you can get a plate of grilled sardines with salad for 13 euros, or a grilled squid with vegetables also for 13 euros. And for an appetizer, you can have your choice between a plate of dry cheese with olives for 8.5 euros, or roasted chorizo, which is Portuguese sausage, for 9 euros. So they have some rather interesting dishes here. When Portugal was ruled by Spain, they shared a lot in common with Spain. The Portuguese language is similar to Spanish. For example, people that visit Portugal from South America, they will understand most Portuguese, and also most Portuguese are Catholic, which is similar for Spanish speaking people as well in Spain. So they do have language and religion in common. The Portuguese would go on to gain their independence from Spain in the 1600s, and then would grow rich through world trade in spices, textiles, consumer goods, and even slaves. And Portugal was involved in the slave trade up until the late 1800s. This is called Portugal Experience. And looking for a menu here. Not finding a menu, so now looking at their website, and they sell codfish cakes here for $5 each, and it looks like that's all they sell. Though it's odd that a lot of these cafes, they do not post their menus either outside or inside. So if you like codfish cakes, it's like there's a little bit of a line to wait in before you know what the price is and even what they serve, unless you just want to look on their website. And then across the street from the codfish cakes, they have this pretty nice looking bakery, and the pastries on the bottom, those are a very popular Portuguese pastry. Those are the pastel de natas, and they basically taste almost like cooked ice cream batter, I guess is what I would compare it to. They're also known as egg tarts, and each pastry sells for about $1.50, $2 each, and they are pretty good and quite filling. Still in the downtown shopping district, this is a rather interesting looking elevator, and this is the Santa Justa lift, which is a large elevator that was built in 1899 that takes people to the top of the next street, which is over 148 feet higher in elevation than where I'm standing now. And I don't really have a good vantage point to see the next street from here, so I'm just going to walk up a little bit further. But basically, at the top of this elevator, there's a walkway that just takes the pedestrians to the next street over, and you can sort of see it from here, that walkway in the center. And a ticket for the elevator ride is €5, and this seems like it's a rather popular tourist destination, as the line for the elevator lift is wrapping all the way around the corner of the street. And this area here is they also have a lot of shops and restaurants. Here is a little coffee shop called Castro, followed by a souvenir store. And then if you wonder if marijuana is legal here in Lisbon, this should answer your question. This is called the Bud Temple Cannabis Store, and right next to the Bud Temple there is a Starbucks coffee, and I've actually been in Starbucks, and a large latte is 3.7 euros, which is roughly about $4 US. Here in Martin Munez Park, and what's interesting is they are currently having a protest in support of Palestine, even after the recent attack on Israel by Palestinian militants. Over 1,000 Israeli citizens have been killed, and this protest here, some of their signs say "End the blockade on Gaza," and there's other pro-Palestinian banners, and I really didn't realize that there were this many pro-Muslim supporters here in Lisbon, or even in Portugal in general. Anyhow, continuing on, across the street from the Martin Muñoz Park is the Hotel Mundo. That is listed as a 4-star hotel, and the current nightly rate there is 254 euros. A few people have said to avoid this park just because it is known locally as a hangout for drug dealers, but at the moment I do not see any illegal activity. Maybe some reprehensible activity, such as these pro-Palestinian protesters, but I do not see anything that looks like drug dealing or drug use here in the park this afternoon. One other thing that's interesting about drugs in Portugal is they are legal, or not so much legal, but the use of hard drugs is not criminalized, which means drug users will not be prosecuted. However, drug dealers are still prosecuted, and that's rather surprising. Even hard drugs such as cocaine or heroin, they will not jail the drug user, but they will monitor that person now. So it's probably still not a good idea to use hard drugs even here, and even if it was completely legal, it would still be a really bad idea to use hard drugs like that unless you really want to fry your brain. And this is the site of the Hotel Mundo, the 4-star hotel. And then across the street from the Hotel Mundo, they have some gift shops, and here's a little restaurant. This is called Alibaba Kebab House. They sell kebab sandwiches there. A kebab sandwich with a drink and fries is 6.5 euros. And next shop is a gelato store, and 1 scoop of gelato is $2.50. And lots more souvenir shops. This pathway here leads to the main market square of downtown Lisbon, and they also have a lot more shopping, souvenir shops, restaurants. Here's another kebab store and pizza, and some other clothing, souvenirs. This one sells, looks like dishware. As you can see, this is a rather touristy area, a lot of souvenir shops, suitcases. This is the Praça do Rossio Square, which is named after King Dom Pedro IV, and the king's statue is there on top of that column. And this plaza area has a lot of historic buildings, shops, restaurants, and hotels as well. And the first hotel is this building directly in the center. This is the International Design Hotel, which is listed as a 4-star hotel, and one night there is 224 euros, which is about average for this area. I would say the average price is around 200 euros just because we're still in the downtown Lisbon area. And then they have this very nice water fountain here, and a lot of people are taking their pictures on this very nice day. And then my map is showing a second hotel across the street. It is a Hotel Metropole, but I do not see their sign, so I'm just gonna walk around here a little bit and see if I can find it. And I'm not sure what's going on with all of these posters here in the center of this square. Everything is in Portuguese. Anyhow, looking for the Hotel Metropole. Okay, there, that looks to be it in the center behind the bus stop there. That is listed online as a 3-star hotel, and the current nightly rate there is 174 euros, though it does look like the Hotel Metropole has a few more complaints than the last hotel. Some people complain that the hotel is older and is not kept up as well. One person writes, "Old hotel, only clean area was the bed. Needs to be fully renovated. Furniture and carpet dirty, ripped and stained. TV not functioning. Personnel okay, but not especially friendly." And then another user writes, "Dirty, old, poorly maintained. A shame with the good location. With a little time and money, they could have a vintage hotel." So apparently some of these buildings in this area have not been completely renovated, and they are looking like they're a little bit older, but I guess it's just on a case-by-case basis which buildings have been updated. And anyhow, this is a rather interesting store here. This is called Mundo Fantástico da Sardina Portuguesa, and it looks like it is just a straight sardine store, and all they sell is cans of sardines, and these cans have dates on them from 1916 all the way through the late 1900s, and I'm not sure what the dates signify. If hopefully that's not as old as the sardines in the can. I doubt they would have a 100-year-old sardine in there, but it's nonetheless a interesting store. And there's a really neat car there. Could take a tour of Lisbon in a classic car, or you could also take a tour by Tuk Tuk, that little red car right there. And though I have not done that yet, I believe the Tuk Tuks charge approximately $50 per hour. And here's another little Tuk Tuk. And these are, looks like 3-wheeled vehicles, like an ATC almost. And it looks like it's a busy day for the tuk-tuk drivers. And then this building in the center would be the Teatro National Performing Arts Theater. And this is a theater inside of a 18th century castle. And that looks like a really neat looking building, though it doesn't appear to be open just at the moment. They have the front sidewalk area closed off. Anyhow, continuing on, more shops, restaurants, tour buses. This one's called Lisbon Sightseeing, and they have a open bus tour. It's a pretty neat idea. And then some of these other names everyone will recognize, such as the McDonald's across the street. And McDonald's seem to be quite popular out here. And there are more historic buildings in this area. Directly ahead is the Palazzo da Independencia, which was built during the 15th century and was once a former palace. And there's other very interesting buildings here. This is a Catholic church, the Church of Saint Dominique, which was built during the 13th century and then rebuilt following the 1755 earthquake. So parts of that building are over 800 years old, and that is a very neat looking church. And then in the center of this square, there's a memorial to the fallen Jewish victims of Europe. And if you like pork sandwiches, then you're probably going to like this restaurant. This is the As Bifanas do Afonso restaurant, and they specialize in marinated pork sandwiches. Though what I find odd is I cannot find a menu for this restaurant. There's a menu on this side for this other restaurant here, but apparently you have to wait till you get to the cashier before you find out what the price is of a pork sandwich. And there's other historic buildings just right in this square. This is a CDS political party building, and that is one of the political parties of Portugal. And then across the street is a hotel. This is the Memoria Hotel, and it is listed online as a 4-star hotel. And one night here is $234. So even though we're about a half mile from the downtown Lisbon area, this is still a rather expensive part of town. And I'm now on one of the side streets of downtown Lisbon. And what's interesting is if you walk down some of these side alleys, some of these older buildings are in really bad condition, though this is a rather neat archway. But just on this other side, these look to be vacant. Not really sure what's going on here, but this brick building to the left though looks like it's in really bad shape, and I really would not want to be in a brick building like that if there was a large earthquake again. This is the Lisbon Cathedral, also known as the Cathedral of Saint Mary Major, and this is a Catholic church which was built in the year 1147 and is almost 900 years old. And the Lisbon Cathedral was destroyed by the great earthquake in 1755, which measured 7.7 on the Richter scale. And it wouldn't be until the 20th century that the cathedral would be completely repaired. And we are just on top, or near the top of this hill above Lisbon. This is the Alfama neighborhood, and the streets here seem to get even narrower than they were in the downtown area. And as you can see, there's a lot of tourist activity and various tuk-tuks, taxis parked in front. And then over to the right, This looks like a residential area behind all of these street vendors here. Looks like some of these houses are kind of in various stages of repair. That one looks vacant. Looks like it's being worked on. Anyhow, this is the side of the Lisbon Cathedral, and this is a very impressive building. I would say that's at least 10 stories tall, and it even has a clock on the side of the building, and it looks to be pretty accurate. It says it's about 3:15. And I believe to go inside of the cathedral you do need to purchase tickets, as this is a rather popular tourist spot. And the sign says ticket office to the left, but even just from the outside it's still a interesting experience. And still in the Alfama neighborhood, this is one giant tree, and I don't know what the background story is of this tree, but it just has a giant base that's at least 15-20 feet wide, and it is right next to this street, and apparently it's also a tourist attraction as other tourists are stopping. And that is a very interesting looking tree. This is the Santa Lucia Church, which was built in the 17th century and is a Catholic church, and they have a very lovely courtyard area here with a very nice garden, and there's also a very nice view of the Tagus River. And this afternoon there are at least 3 cruise ships at port, and the first one is the Anthem of the Seas, and I don't know the names of the other 2, but it's a busy day at port here in Lisbon. And you also have a very good view from up here, now about 3/4 of the way up to the top of the Alfama neighborhood. And this is the view from the back of the St. Louisa Catholic Church, and the view is almost as good as it is from the front of the church. And they also have the St. George's Castle in this area. I believe it's on the other side of the Alfama neighborhood, which I'm almost to the top of this hill, but I don't think I'm gonna have time to get to the St. George's Castle. And on the other side of the Lisbon Cathedral, they have this museum, which at one time was a political prisoner prison, and it even looks the part. It has bars on the windows, and this would predate the democratic movement in Portugal. This is the hotel that I'm staying at for part of my stay here in Lisbon, the Ibis Hotel, and it is located approximately 2 miles from downtown Lisbon, though there is a subway stop just right down this street, and there's also several other hotels in this area. Across the street is a Novotel, and then the airport is pretty close by because airplanes fly by about once every couple minutes. There's another one, and then this is also a hotel, a Santa Maloha Hotel. Anyway, let's go inside and check out the Ibis. And this is my room at the Ibis Hotel. It's just a standard basic economy room like most Ibis hotels, though it is clean and it has been quiet. Even with the airplane noise, you really can't hear them with the window closed. And the room has 1 bed, a queen size bed, and also a view of this side of the city. And then there's a restroom located here by the entrance, and also just a standard hotel bath and shower. And the current nightly rate here is $86 per night, which is at least 50% cheaper than a comparable hotel in downtown Lisbon. So overall, I think it's a good value and I would stay here again. And this is the subway stop down the street from the Ibis Hotel. And this is the Praca de España subway station, and looks like we're still in the flight path for the airport. And I'm just going to take a train into downtown Lisbon, which is about a 10-minute train ride, and a one-way ticket is about $2 US. And now just waiting for my train inside of the subway station, and on each side of the tracks there's an electronic billboard that tells you which station the train is going to. And the side that I'm on, the sign says Santa Apollonia, and it sounds like there's a train coming now. This is the Armand's do Chato shopping mall, and it is an indoor shopping mall with over 50 shops and restaurants. And they also have a hotel right next to the mall. That is the Hotel do Chato, which is listed as a 4-star hotel. And one night there is 339 euros per night. And I also like this mall because they have a public restroom, unlike many other businesses here in Lisbon. You have to pay to use the restroom or buy something like at a cafe. And this is the inside of the shopping mall. Looks to be about a 3-level mall, and at the top of the mall they have a food court. This might be one of the cheapest stays in downtown Lisbon. This building is the City Center Hostel and is located right here in the busy shopping and restaurant area of Lisbon. And apparently though, there's quite a few complaints, like most hostels, to have one user rights. We stayed here for 4 nights and we had prepaid, but when we saw the condition of the room, I was ready to leave to find another place. No need to pay more for a separate bathroom. The whole bedroom bathroom is in a bad state. The tapestry is peeling off, the ceiling is patched up with tape, and there is no daylight. Between the bedroom and the bathroom is a corridor surrounded by plates stuck on the blackberries, behind which are cockroaches. The door to your room is very thin and opens directly into a reception area where other people renting a room can be. So there is a lot of noise pollution. In conclusion, to avoid for the price paid. And then see a few other interesting reviews here. Some of them are rather scary. One customer writes, "Don't ever go to this hostel. Me and my friend woke up in the middle of the night that some Hindu man on our bed and tried to rape us. People are sick." That's a rather scary experience, but to be fair, you could say the same thing about almost any other hostel, shared dormitory. And it does have, to look on the bright side, a good location here in downtown Lisbon. Grocery shopping in Lisbon. The first thing that you will probably notice is that the supermarkets are quite a bit smaller than they are in the United States, though the price of food actually is pretty reasonable here. And this looks like sort of the bread section. A loaf of bread is Looks like $2 for that loaf. And looks like frozen foods, dairy. Here are 1 liter containers of milk for €1 each. And they usually sell milk by the liter. I have not seen it sold by the half gallon, and certainly not by the gallon. So it's a little bit more expensive than US prices. And junk food, Dorito chips, a bag, 1.4 euros. And frozen pizza section. These pizzas are between 3 and 5 euros each. And ice cream, Ben & Jerry's, 5 euros for a pint of Ben & Jerry's, but then their own brands of ice cream are quite a bit cheaper. These are 2.5 euros for maybe a third of a gallon of chocolate Negro chocolate ice cream. Looking for the meat section. Here is some frozen fish and grupa slices of grupa are $8 per pound.